Karen's going to be our keynote speaker this morning. We're excited to have Karen. She's always a treat, packs a big punch when she's talking about social personal branding and how professors can take advantage of that. So Karen Freberg, if you're not familiar with her or not involved in any of her communities online, she started and runs the SM Profs community, hashtag social media professor community on Facebook as well. But she's also an associate professor in strategic communications at the University of Louisville, where she teaches, researches, and consults in social media strategy, public relations, and crisis communication. She's got experience working with brands such as Hootsuite, General Motors, done some really cool things. I think 2 years ago for the Breeders' Cup, which was fun to watch. Facebook, Adobe, Chipotle, all the cool brands. And she's written several books, including Social Media for Strategic Communications, Creative Strategies and Research-Based Applications, Discovering Public Relations, and an upcoming student release on personal branding. More details to come later this year. We're excited for that courseware to be launched with her. So without any further ado, I am going to jump off, let Karen jump on the main stage and take over.
Thank you so much, Trevor, again, for the kind introduction and just everything that you and the entire team at StuCat have done for educators. ProfCon has become one of my favorite events, but everything that you're doing for educators and empowering us is greatly appreciated. And it's so wonderful to be here and to share on a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm really excited to be working with StuCat on a personal branding textbook. And so that's why I have lots of coffee. I'm definitely able to power myself. So I'm going to share my screen and get this started. So I appreciate everyone who's coming in on the West Coast. Growing up in California, I definitely know it's a little bit early for you all. So thank you all so much for coming. Just to make sure that the technology is working, everyone can see my screen, correct? Yes? All right, cool, awesome. So my name again is Karen Freberg, and as of July 1st, actually, in just a few weeks, I'm going to be a professor in strategic communication. So I actually have gotten promoted to full professor of strategic communication. So I'm really excited about that. So this is actually the first presentation where I've actually listed professor under there. So today's keynote, I'm going to be talking again about personal branding, but really about how to set yourself apart as an educator utilizing not only social media strategy, but brand partnerships and more. So I hope it's going to be a fun presentation, something that you would be able to kind of apply and bring back to your courses in the upcoming year. And I also want to make sure that if there's any questions that you all have, I want to use this as kind of a jumping off point. So if you want to have a conversation or you want to reach out afterwards, I will be around for ProfCon. And of course, I am pretty much everywhere on social, including Twitter, where I have my handle. So more than happy to chat and help out in any way I can. So the agenda that I have today is just kind of talking a little bit, like a brief recap over what is personal branding, what are some of the skills that we are kind of seeing educators, in terms of what they need to have kind of going into the 2021-2022 academic year, but also kind of formulating opportunities through social strategy and formulating brand partnerships. So I've had, again, the last couple of years, especially at the University of Louisville, I've had a chance to work with some incredible brands, as Trevor mentioned, but I'm going to give you all kind of an inside look of what I have done to kind of help formulate those brand partnerships for my class, but also for myself. And then I will definitely open up for Q&A. Of course, I had to make sure that my new Australian Shepherd puppy, Mando, got an appearance. So if you hear any barking, that is him. He's just very excited to be part of ProfCon. So if there's pets of ProfCon represented, I'd love to see who all is coming in. So let's get started. So again, with personal branding, it is really a big area of focus, and we are seeing more than ever across the board in the education space, whether it's for students or faculty or even leading professionals, how you're presenting yourself to your industry and what different types of personality characteristics and attributes are assigned to you are elements that are really at the forefront of what people are talking about right now. And so what is exactly personal branding? It is the strategic communication process of managing and sustaining the various stories, connections, perceptions, attributes, and personality characteristics that are part of who you are as a person and professional. I was able to say that all in one breath. And every person has a personal brand. We all do. We all have various attributes and associations and stories that make us who we are. And a lot of times I think educators have to we all have to remind ourselves that we also have a personal brand. We talk about it with our students on how they need to have it, but sometimes we forget, oh yeah, we also have one as well. And I think it is important for us to kind of look forward to seeing what we can do to have a strong presence in not only the academic community, but also the industry. So again, I'm very grateful for Stuka to really have a platform in place for us to really connect the bridge between industry and academia and empowering us to have these skills. And so I think it's really important for us to kind of look at what are the components that we can use to help us in our own personal brand through our research, our teaching, our work in the industry, because what we are seeing right now in personal branding for educators is a multifaceted component. So there's a lot of elements that we have to keep in mind and consider. So I think more than ever, one of the things that I feel what's been very interesting just to kind of see in the last year or so is how COVID and a lot of these expectations and changes that we're seeing in the industry have really kind of shifted how we are presenting ourselves in higher education. And more than ever, I feel that educators really need to kind of utilize the tools and skills and insights that we cover in our classes and how we can take advantage of these personal branding opportunities. I know just for myself, the expectation to be tied with the industry to make sure that my research is not only relevant, for the academic purposes, but also has a connection back to the industry for applicability purposes. And so, and I saw this firsthand when I was going up for promotion for full professor. It was not only the research and work that I had done that really kind of got me to that position, but actually, what was noted, which was kind of surprising to me, was the work that I was doing with brand partnerships and the connections in the industry. That was kind of the highlight or one of the highlights that was emphasized. So I think that if we are able to kind of utilize these tools for our own benefit, we can, everything kind of works well together. If we're able to connect with the industry, you're kind of seeing what people are talking about, what are they concerned about, exploring, we can integrate that as part of our class projects, but then it kind of leads into research. So everything kind of is interconnected, and personal branding allows us to really kind of establish ourselves into the forefront of the minds of not just our own field in education, but in the industry, the community, and beyond. And I feel too, like one of the things that I want to kind of say first off, I love Pixar, and whenever I can talk about and integrate Pixar movies into my presentations, I'm going to do that. So I feel when it comes to personal branding, there's all types of feelings and associations that people make about personal branding. There's me, like with Joy. I love personal branding. I could talk about it all day. I've read a book on it. So it is an area that I'm very passionate about, but there are some other feelings and associations towards personal branding that I feel that educators may have. They may feel a little intimidated, like, well, I don't know where to start. I may have some concerns about putting myself out there. And then, there may be some people that are frustrated. They may, look at, personal branding saying, okay, it's just another thing that I have to kind of add to all of the lists of responsibilities that I have to do in my day-to-day work. So there's a lot of associations and feelings that are attributed to personal branding. But I feel that it doesn't necessarily have to be something where you spend hours on hours a day. If you do a little bit of work each and every day, kind of formulating relationships, posting content, building, communities, it just takes, it just kind of snowballs to the point where, if you're kind of building on a little bit every day, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I have all these opportunities. And so it's just, again, kind of a little bit every day kind of works forward. So I feel that's something that I wanted to kind of emphasize here today. And I feel like when we are kind of looking at new skills, it's always interesting for me to kind of look at what are the job postings out there for new educators or new hires in terms of what are the skills necessary for educators as we enter into higher ed, and what are things that people are expecting. And what I've seen across the board is everyone is kind of looking at educators, not only to have strong research and teaching experience, but to have some of these new skills for personal branding that, I mean, are kind of implied. And if you read it between the lines, they're like, okay, you're kind of looking for some of these elements. I think the first one that we need to kind of look at is adaptability. How agile and adaptive are you to growing changes, trends? Are you sharing those in terms of what you're doing in the workplace and your work? And I think also the thing that I feel too, what we have to look at in personal branding too, is work-life harmony. And so everyone talks about work-life balance, but there is really a harmony into it where you have to look at what you're doing in your workplace and your teaching. But at the same time, with a personal brand, you want to have like a human side to you. And so if you want to post various activities and professional work, a lot of times in order for people to kind of resonate with you and connect with you, they want to know what are your hobbies, what are things that you're interested in, do you have passion projects? So if you look at my social media feed, I have everything from tons of puppy pictures of Mando, but other things that I'm passionate and interested, because I feel in terms of my personal brand, my role as an educator is just one part of who I am. And I feel too, cultural relevance, kind of seeing what's happening in pop culture, looking at what people are talking about and kind of being part of the conversation. But I'm going to talk a little bit in details about relationship building and networking. That has helped me out tremendously in terms of formulating these brand partnerships, as I mentioned, for my classes and my own work experience. And then, of course, diversity, expertise, experiences and offerings. So when I talk a little bit more today about brand partnerships, it is about fine-tuning what are your areas of expertise, what are experiences that you can offer as an educator, but also as someone who's overseeing coursework, and what are some offerings that you have. So I'm actually going to be going over this in a little bit of detail. The first time I've ever done that, because I've had a few professors that are like, okay, Karen, how do you go about using this for your personal brand? So that's one of the things that I want to do here today. So must-haves for our personal brand. I feel that we are seeing more of this happening across the board with professors having an established website and blog where they're able to kind of upload their CVs, their content updates, like consulting opportunities and speaking engagements. I feel it is important for us to have that digital real estate, that if anyone searches for us, they can say, oh, here's a website, oh, here's your blog. It allows us to have that own media space. Social media accounts, I feel, especially, I know for me, who is someone who teaches, researches, and writes about social media, if I'm not present on social media, people may have a question about that. So whenever I tell my students that I'm on TikTok, they are both impressed, but also terrified. And I'm like, hey, you got to go where the platforms are. You want to have a mission statement, kind of what is your overall mission and purpose for the industry. So the thing that I've wanted to do in my role is to make an impact in the industry, but also helping to bridge the gap between industry and academia. So you want to kind of figure out what is your overall purpose, what are your goals, what are the things that you stand for in terms of values and principles, and how do that kind of embodies what you are as an educator and as a person. And we write all of these mission statements for our classes, and we have our students evaluate these. And so what we have to do is kind of reflect on ourselves, put the spotlight and say, okay, what's our mission statement? Media kits. We are seeing a lot of people in the education sector getting some consulting opportunities or even become influencers in their own way. And so looking at your own social media following and your area of expertise, what are you willing to participate in? What projects are you interested in? And I feel too, with the color palette, I feel that is something that is important for us as well. So if you look at my website, my color palette has been pretty consistent across the board, but if I'm representing the University of Louisville, I'm pretty much standard with their colors. And so you want to kind of feel like what are the colors that best represent you, and kind of embrace that as part of your branding. Community. So as Trevor mentioned, the SM Profs community was established a few years ago. We have over 2,000 members. And so that kind of grew organically. And it is important for us to kind of be able to kind of foster a community and build those relationships. And then, of course, social and public proof, like what are the social interactions that you're able to have on social media to kind of showcase like your presence and contribution to the industry, as well as your connections, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then obviously for professional experience and evidence, like what have you done in terms of your practices, both in your work in the classroom, outside the classroom, that also kind of helps you kind of validate your expertise on an area. And as we know, and sometimes in social media, there's experts and there's experts. So it's important to kind of have that distinction. And then, of course, for social media best practices and strategy, I feel that the biggest thing that I can kind of walk away here with you all for your personal brand is being authentic, but consistent. So kind of tapping into your mission statement. What are the values that you really attribute and that you want to kind of fully embrace, and make sure that it's consistent both on your social media accounts, but also how you interact with yourself offline. And I feel like if there's any kind of disconnect, that's when people have issues, right? They're like, well, which person do we believe? The one we see online or the one we see in person? And share value, mentor others, and promote positivity. I mean, that's kind of where I've kind of looked at is what are the things that I wish I had, as I was going through the process of starting up as an educator to help others. And I feel that the value that Stukin and the community brings forth for educators and students is tremendous. So I feel that is something that we share very similarly. And I feel mentoring others, I mean, we have to kind of make sure that the people coming behind us who are the future of our profession have the best start and resources possible. And I feel too, life is too short. A lot of things are happening in the world, and I feel too, positivity is great, to be able to kind of foster that. And I can't stress this enough, your network is your net worth. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how by building relationships and connections, it really kind of does foster a very strong community that if you're able to kind of build those relationships, people trust you, they feel, oh, okay, you really are empowering the future generation. You are really, doing something unique. You may get an opportunity that kind of falls into your lap because of those relationships. And so that is something to kind of think about. And then this is one that, like this last point that I've always kind of lived by. We taught in marketing, public relations, social media, we always talk about doing a SWOT and situational analysis. And I do this on a regular basis. I look at what other people have done in the industry and I see, okay, here's where everyone's going in this direction. I'm going to go that way. I'm going to go the opposite direction because it's about standing out. It's about offering something that no one else has that is unique, interesting. And so it's not about necessarily doing what everyone else has done. It's about looking at things and say, you know what? People are going in the one direction, but if I go over here, yeah, I might be scary. It might be something that I am going to be looking at and being all alone. Could work, could not. Trust me, there's been a lot of times where I've gone one direction. I'm like, well, that was an experience, but I learned from it. But most often, like when I've gone the opposite direction and done something different, that's the payoff. That is the reward, because people are like, well, okay, you're different. You're interesting. So don't be afraid of looking and doing that on social media. And I think too, I can't stress this, that one resource I would strongly recommend on Twitter, especially for my marketing professors, but I would also recommend for my social media educators and PR professors, is to look at what marketing Twitter is. So marketing Twitter is a community with all people, from various brands, agencies. And these are some of the game changers that are happening in the industry. And so I just have a couple of screenshots. I got connected with marketing Twitter last year during the pandemic when everyone was home, everyone was remote. We're like, okay, we want to kind of build those social connections. So marketing Twitter is a group of individuals from all sorts of brands, including Adweek, Twitter, and then even Sour Patch Kids. So what I've tried to do is say, okay, these are people that potentially I could bring into my class. And I want to show them what we're doing, because one of the challenges that I've had for personal branding always as a professor is you have people saying higher education is overrated, it's too expensive, or my favorite, the students in our classes are not learning what they need to do in the industry. And my response is, well, you haven't looked at what Stukin is offering, for professors in terms of simulation and books. Two, it's like you really don't know the full scope of the innovation and creativity that is happening in the education. So by being present and active in these conversations, we can kind of, basically prove these associations and basically perceptions of what higher education to be myths, and in terms of we could be the reality of what a modern educator and professional are. So I will talk a little bit about Adweek. Adweek also has an academic council that you can be a part of, that you can get publications from. So that was actually something that really kind of helped me in my case for tenure, is that I was able to show, yes, I'm a contributor to Adweek because I was invited as part of the academic council for Adweek. So if you have questions or if you're interested in it, I know we have several professors who are part of ProfCon who are also part of the council, and I'd be happy to kind of talk to you about how you can apply there. And then, again, the thing that I feel too, that I want to spend a lot of time on today is how do you formulate brand partnerships as an educator? So as Trevor mentioned, I've had a chance to work with some incredible brands. Some of these brands have come to me to work with, and then others I've pitched and I've gone after saying, I want to work with this brand for my class. And how do you formulate these as an educator? So I've had a chance in my classes to have some really cool brands to work with. So these are the brands that I've actually worked with for my graduate level PR course. So as Trevor mentioned, I had a chance a few years ago to work with the Breeders' Cup, which is a world championship horse racing event. And they were located, they're different than, let's say, the Kentucky Derby, because they change locations every year. And the year that they came to Louisville, they approached me saying, you know what, we would really like to partner with you in your class. So that was an example of a brand that came to me. And then that kind of built that momentum. We got some press at the university level, and even we partnered with Adobe because we were able to kind of pilot test a new tool called this is not really relatively new right now because it was Adobe Rush, but before then we were able to test that out. So they kind of amplified our story. So again, you kind of had that media buzz that was able to, like, I was able to translate that into an opportunity where I pitched to Facebook about possibly working with them because they were launching a new certification program. I was a subject matter expert working with them at the time, and so we were able to do a class project with them. Then that led to Chipotle for 2020. And so that was a great opportunity where we were able to help them out in terms of brainstorming ideas for influencer marketing with sustainability and Gen Z. And this upcoming fall, a big brand that is here locally in Louisville is Brown-Forman. So we're actually working with them as well in terms of identifying influencer strategies with them. And so some of these, brands, again, came to me, but also came to, I also pitched to them. So there's opportunities to pitch and engage both ways. And again, I have to use the Pixar reference. I love Ratatouille. I feel like there are times where I feel like I embrace Anton Ego in my classes to kind of ask the students, what do the students have that's new? But I also like Gustav. And I feel that he has a good message in the movie that says, like Gustav said, anyone or any educator can cook or otherwise create a brand partnership. You don't have to be at the biggest school possible. And so we've seen, some of these iconic big name schools say, oh, we have these partnerships that we give to our students. Anyone can create a partnership, because I'll tell you one thing that is happening with COVID. A lot of brands are looking for new talent. And so that some of the schools that they've kind of always gone to because of their reputation and prestige or how high they are on the US News World Report, those days are limited. I mean, yes, there's going to be some brands that will go to those schools, but a lot of times they say, well, we are looking for one, new talent, but also two, fresh perspectives. And three, they want to work and partner with educators who are committed, who are empathic, who are there, who understand the current state that is happening in the industry. So again, anyone can create a brand partnership. And so I want to be able to give you all the tools and insights necessary for you to be able to kind of do that. But it all kind of fundamentally comes down to personal branding, how you're viewed, respected, and presented in the industry, both in academia and industry. And all that does, this all takes time and energy, in terms of building relationships, but I'm here to kind of give you all some tips on how to do that. And so again, this is basically things that I have not really shared publicly, but the biggest thing that you want to do for creating brand partnerships or, brands and classroom partnerships is how are you going to demonstrate value back to your students, for this experience and for the program, but also to the brand. You want to create a win-win situation. So first off, you want to kind of collaborate, you want to brainstorm and get feedback from the brand and kind of see, okay, what are you doing in your classes that is working that you can basically do as part of a project, but also you want to get feedback from the brand. So case in point with Brown-Forman, I've had probably a good, 5 to 10 meetings with them already before the semester started, just to kind of get that collaborations going, to kind of see, okay, what are things that we could help out with, but what are things that they can do to kind of work with us. So again, that partnership is really crucial, because you want to kind of look at, what's, going to be beneficial for both parties. Innovation, in terms of new ideas, tapping into audiences or unique opportunities. So the Breeders' Cup was a very unique opportunity. One, because it was here in Louisville, and the University of Louisville was right, basically we're just down the road from Churchill down, so it was very access. But the unique opportunities is this was the first time that they had ever partnered with a program like ours before. So this was something that was cool and innovative. But of course, the benefits, having fresh perspectives, giving back to the community, but then also ultimately recruiting talent. So a lot of these brands and partnerships want to, they're looking for talent. They're looking for the next hire. And so that's kind of where they are looking for fresh perspectives. So they're not going the typical route. And if they see, okay, here's a professor doing some really innovative things in their classes, they're established with their personal brand, I want to be part of that. So by building that reputation and community and presence in the industry, people will come to you to look at that. And so compensation too, a lot of people have said, well, are the students getting paid for this work? I mean, I kind of put this in quotation marks because, again, they have classroom support, they have exclusive mentoring. Sometimes they have swag items. So Chipotle, was able to send us some gift cards, that the students were like very happy about for the final exam period. But again, it really depends on what is the overall compensation. But the big thing for me is the classroom support, the media exposure, and also the exclusive marketing, because those are sustainable, and those relationships you can't buy. And then of course the ROI evaluation. What are the things that, the KPIs essentially that you get to be evaluating on to determine whether or not this partnership was a success. Reports and presentations, like what are the outputs that you have. Media coverage and mention. So for the Breeders' Cup, we got a huge level of exposure. We got from Adobe to national and local news, and that exposure helped us kind of get more for future opportunities for the students. And so for the Breeders' Cup, for example, all of one stat that I have for, that I share with my students and brands, is that of the 16 students that were part of that graduate course, 9 of them had jobs way before they graduated. And so the ultimate goal, is for these brands, they're like, yeah, that's great. And ideally they want to hire those students as well. So those are just some things that you want to kind of communicate, when you are kind of looking at creating value for the brands. But then also too, again, you want to create a win-win situation. So again, this really is kind of where you have to think strategically for your brand and your class in terms of what you do. So you want to kind of have in the, again, ultimately, if you have all of these components, you're creating a win-win situation for you and the brand who you're partnering with. One, what does your class do that is unique and interesting? So one of the things that I've done is, of course, the brands look at what I'm doing on social media, but I also look, share them with what I am doing in the classroom. And also, again, what you are known for, kind of that taps with your personal branding. Like, are you known for social media, marketing, public relations, so, like other areas. And so the brands are not coming to me, for example, for rocket science. I can send them a rocket emoji. That's probably my, experience, with, rocket science, but they're coming to me because of the work that I've done, my research in social media, PR, influencer marketing. So that, you want to kind of see what you are known for from the industry standpoint, but then also looking at what the brand needs. We're in a very unique situation as educators, that we're constantly getting new cohorts coming in, new audiences with unique perspectives, stories, and takes. And that most of the time these brands want to reach this particular audience. And so they have questions about that, and being able to kind of see what you can do to kind of meld and create a win-win situation is always good. So that's one thing that I think you want to think about, is you always want to make sure that there are benefits on both sides of the coin for you. So if you're benefiting as a professor for your students to get experience working with brands, so they have items that they can put in their portfolio, and then they can use for future job and internship opportunities. But you yourself, you're able to kind of build that as part of your reputation. You're able to get that experience and be able to add that to your work as well. And then you sometimes you have to make the first move. And so I just want to reassure everyone, brands, organizations, and other professionals, I can tell you, they are waiting to work for educators and students. Like, all you have to do is reach out to them and take that first move. And so we always talk to our students like, hey, network, reach out to people, shoot your shot. I mean, that's basically where I would recommend for educators to do, is to participate in the communities and conversations. So case in point, with Chipotle, I was able to formulate a really good relationship with the Chipotle team for several months during COVID. And then I basically thought, you know what, I love Chipotle. I pretty much lived on it when I was a track and field athlete, both at Florida and Southern Cal in college. So I thought this would be a really cool brand to partner with. I like what they're doing on TikTok. They're really kind of innovative. I want to work with them. So I basically sent a pitch and went through the ranks. And then boom, last summer around this time, I was able to say, hey, I'm working with Chipotle. And so you want to provide the benefits and features and deliverables. So we write pitches, or we have our students write pitches every day. How, like, what's stopping us from writing our own pitch to kind of make these things happen? And so you want to kind of tie in, when you're reaching and making your shot, justify your assignments and how they're tapped into learning and professional objectives. And so one of the things that I've always done that I've added in my syllabus are those marketable skills. Like, what are the skills that each student will walk away with, tied not only to, you know, the learning objectives that are set for the course, but professionally speaking, what are things that they're going to be able to do after they are finished with this course? So being able to kind of tie that bridge together is extremely important. And then again, you know, when you're kind of looking at how to tie everything together. So this is another infographic I have not shared with everyone until now. So like what I do is I share the assignments. I talk a little bit about the earned media that I've gotten. So this was something that I didn't, like, Brown Forman came to me. But if I were to pursue a brand for the future, this is one of the things that I would kind of structure. So you want to tie in your assignments. Again, I'm not saying that you always have to be 100% industry related, but you want to kind of show the mixture of research practice, but then also have in at least one assignment that kind of is new and innovative and unique. And so I'll share a little bit in a few about an assignment that kind of fell in my lap, really, that I was able to kind of show. And that also was kind of one assignment that kind of sealed the deal for me. Lectures talk a little bit about what you're doing in terms of content, who are you bringing into your classes, and also what are the projects that the students are working on. And then the earned and owned media. So the owned media is basically tied into your personal brand, so they can see, oh, okay, Karen has a website, she has a blog, she's present on social, so she's active in, you know, professionally speaking. But then the earned media, I always share, okay, here's, like, for Brown Forman, when I had to pitch to senior management about kind of brainstorming ideas about what we can do for the fall, I highlighted the stories that, you know, were done by the university. I highlighted the stories that were done by the media, and then also kind of individual stories that students were able to correct. So I was able to kind of share that earned media component. So these are just some things to kind of think about when you are kind of looking at your pitches and stuff. And I feel too, the other thing that I want to kind of emphasize here, and I know that we have a few more minutes left, publish beyond academic outlets. I mean, we got, you know, if we're tenure track, I understand the pressure, publish, in academic articles and manuscripts. Yeah, yes, this helps for tenure. Yes, this helps for promotion. But more universities are looking at ways in which you're contributing to the industry. And so at Louisville, what we're doing is, our new president, who is fabulous, Neely is amazing, she's actually setting up a component that under the research criteria for creative activity. But that's kind of where that's going to be housed, is like, are you publishing or getting well known in the industry? So I definitely strongly recommend applying for Adweek Academic Council. It's been a great opportunity. You get to write about some cool things. You get to pitch story ideas. So I've written everything from, you know, mostly like Marketable Skills, but I had a chance to write about Emily in Paris last year. And it allows you to expose your writing to a new audience, but then also it gives validation to industry professionals, like, oh, wow, like, you're writing for Adweek, that's really cool. And, you know, submit to, you know, guest contributor to popular business and marketing blogs, and submitting your stories for research that you've done. Like, there's been a lot of things that I've been able to tie in and pitch, saying, okay, we did this research, here's what you can do here. And so by being able to kind of publish, you know, beyond the academic outlets is really important. So you want to have a mixture of exposure here. So if you have questions about Adweek Academic Council, please let me know. I'd be happy to talk to you guys about that. And so this is my recent article that I published a while ago about 7 new super skills for the post-pandemic marketer. So I was able to highlight some of the skills that educators, students, and even professionals need to have. So this was really fun for me to be able to write, because it basically, if you have, again, writing experience, it's basically, written in a different format, but it allows you to kind of showcase your expertise that you're able to add as part of your CV. And I think too, in terms of standing out, making your own opportunity, really, again, like the big thing that I have here for, brand partnerships and personal branding is really kind of do an evaluation of who you are and your standing, and kind of where, like, what makes your program, your students, university unique in yourself, and be able to kind of determine who you want to partner with. And so, like, kind of tapping into your mission statement and your values, see what other brands and associations or organizations that kind of fall into that. And I feel too, don't be pressured to look like others or what has been done to be expected by professors. And I can tell you, like, I get this all the time. I get the question or comment, Karen, you're not like other professors that, I've interacted with or I had in college. And I'm like, yes, that is purposely designed. I'm trying to kind of establish myself in a different way. So don't feel pressured that you have to look like others, and it's okay for you to be yourself authentically and stand out. So I want to make sure that I reassure everyone that you have that ability, and social media allows you to be able to do that. But again, you want to make sure that it's consistent. What you do online is consistent with how you do online. And I love Edna Mode. I mean, she's an icon. She is like my spirit animal. So she is very, very appropriate. So case study. And so I talked about innovation in the classroom, and so I had this really interesting experience. And I know that I have a few more minutes, but I'm going to kind of share this. So one of the things that I've learned in my personal branding, that in my free time, maybe with the help of Dr. Karen Sutherland, about developing a campaign to salvage my name, because my name, Karen, has been, of course, definitely discussed, not necessarily for the most positive reasons in pop culture. But during the Super Bowl earlier this year, M&M's had a commercial featuring a Karen. And so I tweeted at them saying, yeah, I feel seen. I definitely feel seen. I was laughing about it. What can you do? And M&M start the conversation. And so I had a friend, his name was Fred, in the same conversation, reached out to M&M's during that time and said, hey, look, like Karen, she's had some tough times with this, with people making fun of her name. You need to send her some M&Ms. And so M&Ms actually said, okay, we'll send you some M&Ms to give to your students. So I thought it was basically a fun pack, right, that they were sending me. So if you look at the right-hand screen with my student Terrell, who is part of our cheerleading team and was part of my social media class, they sent me 10 cases of M&M boxes. I mean, I never had so much chocolate in my life, but I knew, as part of the innovative assignment, everyone was talking about TikTok, everyone was doing this. So I told the students to work in groups to create a TikTok video showcasing M&Ms. So M&M's responded. A lot of people saw that on TikTok, and that actually was one of the catalysts that Brown-Forman saw. They're like, okay, this is cool, this is innovative, this is kind of the stuff that we're looking for. So being able to kind of foster these kind of creative ideas by having a brand engaging, but then also kind of, showing what you're doing in the classroom, could formulate new partnerships and opportunities. So again, as I mentioned, you want to think like a brand. You want to look at what deliverables they need to kind of validate that partnership. So as I mentioned earlier, student internship and job placements, mentions in work, media coverage, signups, follows, engagement, members opportunities. So think about what are some of the deliverables that you can provide that improves the return on investment for value with these brand partnerships. So again, you want to kind of think like a brand on what they're going to be looking for in terms of partnerships. And I have just, again, kind of a brief recap. Personal branding can be a game changer. It has really been something that I know I would not be here without it. So all of the research and all the stuff that I've done, yes, has helped me be my professor, but to kind of stand out and kind of create these new opportunities, I'm very grateful to the power of social media and personal branding to really kind of foster that. And it's key to networking ability and relationships. Is absolutely important. So if anyone needs, wants to talk about this or has questions, I'd be more than happy to sit down. We could do a Zoom call or have a coffee chat. And again, anyone can formulate a brand partnership. So I definitely want to thank you guys. Take this into consideration of all the possibilities that you can have, and definitely take your initiative to shoot your shot and make your opportunities happen. You might not hear back from brands, that's okay, but you're learning from the experience. But when they do respond, like I can tell you right now, brands are looking for these partners. They want to work with students. They want to get fresh perspectives. So it's all about reaching out, shooting your shot. If you have questions about that, what works well in a pitch, again, I'd be more than happy to share what I've learned throughout the process. And of course, gotta finish with up. The adventure waits, and again, the best way to get started is taking that first initial step. So I hope from this presentation that you feel confident that you can have the various skills and ideas set in place, that you can make your own brand partnerships for your class, that you can solidify a personal brand, that you can make these exciting opportunities happen, because anything can happen in 2021 and beyond. And I'm really excited to see what other professors are looking into doing. And so I want to give a shout out, like if you have other, if you want to look at what other professors are done who really embrace this model, you will hear from Karen Sutherland here at ProfCon. She is an amazing professor down at the University of the Sunshine Coast in Australia. She is the embodiment of a modern day professor who has built their personal brand, and she is fantastic. I would also like to give a shout out to Brianne Fleming from the University of Florida. She has really done an amazing job with her personal brand. And a rising star to keep your eyes out for is University of South Carolina's PhD student, Kate Stewart. She is going to be a game changer in our field. So these three ladies, I would strongly recommend follow, because as models as we enter the workplace. So if you have any questions, I am an email away at karen.freberg@louisville.edu, and I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. So I'd love to connect with everyone and happy to answer any questions. So yeah, I will take Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Karen. That was a really great, fresh perspective on a topic we usually hear about here at Stukent. So our first question, going all the way back to marketing Twitter, how do you get connected with marketing Twitter?
I actually got connected with, there is an amazing professional named Julian Gamboa. He is one of the social media team leaders at Adweek, and he actually had this viral tweet that happened in February. And it was during, of course, when everything was kind of, the pandemic was kind of shutting down. And he was like, I'm interested in meeting people who are behind some of the iconic brands. And so he said, I'll start. I'm Julian from Adweek. I want to meet the person that runs Pokemon. And so literally it was this thread that you saw that of all these people kind of connect together, like, oh, I represent Chipotle, I represent Aviation Gin. And for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to connect with these people. And so I was able to formulate these relationships on Twitter. And then ultimately, some of them have been, becoming some great friends. And so now with everything kind of opening up, I'm like, okay, y'all, once we get together, it's going to be a crazy meetup, because some of these people are amazing. And I can definitely make sure too, if anyone's interested, I can definitely make sure that share some of the names or resources, because honestly, I've had some of these people in my classes and they are phenomenal guest speakers. And so that's how I got connected with marketing Twitter. And I'm actually part of this DM group that, literally, it's amazing to kind of see what they're talking about, and I'm able to share updates on what I'm doing. And it's been really awesome to kind of formulate those relationships.
That's really cool. So it sounds like everybody needs to get on Twitter and just comb through Karen's following and followers.
Pretty much, yeah. And just search marketing Twitter. There's some incredible, amazing people. And what's interesting is they are really amazed too. They want to connect. They are so passionate about mentoring students. But again, they're kind of here. They're like, well, I'm not active in the marketing or PR or professional organizations. I'm here, but honestly, if you just say, wave, hey, I'm this professor. And oh, by the way, I'm in your area, let's meet up. And they're just waiting for professors and educators. They want to help. They're kind of waiting in the wings. And so for me, I want to expose this, to basically everyone here, so people can take advantage, because there's only so many days and times that I meet for my classes that people want to talk to. And I feel it's important for us to kind of advocate, saying, hey, we have this great community here. We need to, show what we can do and be able to take advantage of those opportunities professionally.
So somebody came in the chat asking if Twitter marketing is a hashtag or a handle, or
it's marketing. Yeah, marketing Twitter. So I'll put that down. And then Julian Yeah, let's see, Gamboa. So I put down Julian Gamboa. If you just search for him on Twitter, he was the person that kind of really started. Everyone calls him like the godfather of marketing Twitter, but there are some incredible people who are part of that brand. And so if you're interested in bringing people from various agencies or brands, like they're all there. So it's awesome.
So we had another question come in real quick. What level classes participate in the types of partnerships you have discussed?
Yeah, so I have done both undergrad and graduate level. So again, I always have to say with this upcoming partnership with Brown-Forman, it is a graduate class that all students are over 21. But all of the, basically, I try to provide real world experiences for my students in all my classes. And so I've had both partnerships at the undergraduate level, but the ones that I shared specifically were for my PR course that I teach in the fall semester. But I've had other partnerships for my classes, like this past spring, I had a chance to work with Adobe actually for my graduate social media strategy class. Work on establishing a student ambassador program for them because we're a creative campus at Louisville. So we want to kind of do like a blueprint for that so they could be applied to elsewhere. So.
Cool. Last question. Have you found it hard to connect the semester-long projects with the rest of the syllabus or coursework? What tips do you have for that?
Yeah, I do. What's interesting, like with the project, like the project that I have for the brand partnership is a semester long project. And I do tell the students, my favorite phrase, I learned it from the late John Cassiopolo, who is a professor of psychology. He worked with my mom for books, and he had a saying that I just feel like I work really hard. And so I tell my students all the time, I don't expect you to work harder than I do, but I do tell them that it is a very demanding class and that they, a lot of them say, I want this job. And I had a student that said, yeah, I want to work for Adidas in 5 years. I'm like, okay, well, what, the game plan you need to do in terms of making that happen. And so I work with the students too. I never assign things that I am not doing myself. So I kind of view myself not only as a professor, but also a coach. So I kind of tell them I'm an honorary, group member, but I'm not going to do your work, but I can bounce off some ideas to see what you guys think. But like they do have the semester long brand project. I would say the Breeders' Cup was probably like the most intense just because it was like a live global event that were happening. But most of the times what we were doing was proposals. So there were some kind of individual assignments leading up, but that they all kind of contributed overall to the brand partnership. So
really cool stuff, Karen. Thank you so much. So we have just posted in the chat the upcoming sessions that we have, and then Kelton also posted a Google Sheet for everybody to put in their Twitter handles if you want to participate. So Karen, you want to put some of those 3 models you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely, I have what I can do too is, I will just make sure that you guys have like access to those handles, and I'll make sure to give them shout outs to using the ProfCon hashtag as well. Because some of these guys, and gals are just, they're characters, but awesome people to connect with, both for guest speakers. Because I know I saw one question come in from Elizabeth, have your students been overwhelmed these past semesters or underwhelmed when one more guest speaker is scheduled? Actually, Elizabeth, no, like my students, I feel sometimes I'm a parent, sometimes in classes where people are like, yeah, Dr. Freberg, you're telling us about personal branding is important, right? But then when a guest speaker comes, they're like, oh my gosh, Dr. Freberg, this is amazing. And I'm like over here feeling like I'm, Kermit the Frog with my tea saying, yes, I know. That's why we're reading it. But honestly, like my students love guest speakers. They really are inspired by them. And so I can definitely give recommendations from marketing Twitter of people that I brought in. If you have a chance, here's a plug. If you have a chance to bring Adrian Molina in, he is a character. He's awesome, but he's also the senior brand manager for Aviation Gin. And I'm still working with him to see if I can get Ryan Reynolds to stop by my class. If that happens, that is like ultimate professor goal. So we'll see if that happens. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely send us an invite if that happens.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next sessions.
All right. Thanks.